Thank you so much for coming tonight. We have a really short and nice little panel for you today. I'm Teresa Bursic, VP of Product at Lucinity, and allow my co-panelists to introduce themselves.
Hi there, Will Staples. I'm the Group MLRO of Currencycloud.
Hello, Billy Pinder. I'm the Head of Transaction Monitoring at Currencycloud.
And if we just get this started to set the scene, why did you choose Lucinity to begin with in your journey of fighting financial crime?
Shall I start? I want to start? Okay. I think at the time when we started working with Lucinity, we were at a super interesting time for us as a business. It was around the time that we got bought by Visa. We were growing in many different markets across many different customers. And we came to a really obvious kind of realization that our risks were only going to continue to become more complicated and evolve. And we were really thinking about, at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that GK just mentioned about empowering your analysts, empowering your financial crime people. How can we best do that? As a business, we're cross-border payments. It's quite complex. We have lots of our own internally developed tools, but we were really looking to external providers in the market that shared the same long-term vision that we have for preventing financial crime. So using data, empowering your people, really focusing on the problems that you want to solve. And we found a really good partner in that with Lucinity, and we've been on a very good journey with them so far to think about how do we use their tooling for our analysts, but then maintain our own internal expertise when we're thinking about our controls and the things we need to the kind of custom nature of our business. So it was a partnership from the start.
I think the only thing I was just going to add is that I love Lucinity as a product-led organization, the one that can take feedback that, as GK says, tell us what you want us to look for. I think with some vendors you find like there's a solution, you either buy option A or option B, and that's all you get, take it or leave it. Whereas I know that Lucinity have been endlessly helpful in kind of looking at our individual use cases, individual things that maybe I as an MLRO are being a bit annoying about that I want to see or don't want to see. I think it's just that ability for them to recognize that and recognize that's part of the value they bring to us has been really great.
Thank you so much. So we've actually expanded our partnership. We're also doing case management and automations through Luci now, and it would be really great if you could share what you're really excited about and what kind of drove that decision from your end.
Yes, absolutely. So we have about 30 analysts in our transaction monitoring function across 2 teams, all of whom are currently using Lucinity's Actor Intelligence product. But we knew we wanted to continue the work with Lucinity and think about the areas where their product is very strong versus where our own engineering and product expertise isn't that strong. So we wanted to move the entire system that our analysts use to do their alert remediation, to do their case management to Lucinity's system. And you asked me what I'm most excited about that. I could basically just repeat everything that GK said. But if I had to choose 3 things from the screen and the case management and Luci, I'd say the really clear side-by-side view that an analyst has, where they have the alert on the left-hand side, the features of the alert, what have the transactions looked like, what have we found that's suspicious, and the ability to click on those specific observations or the entity involved, and then have Luci on that right-hand side kind of guide you through it, do those searches in the background, tell you a bit more about what this particular behavior might indicate, the level of suspicion there. Second piece that's really interesting, we'll probably talk about ethical considerations of generative AI, but something that regulators and banking providers and other people are really thinking about is how do you show where this has been a decision made by your analysts versus a decision empowered or augmented by AI. So one of the things that we're working through as part of the prototyping that we're doing with Lucinity and working really closely on is how can we have a really clear audit and event history when someone is working a case. How have they gone through that? At what stage have they taken action that has been purely that really important human judgment? And at what stage has some of that human judgment been driven or kind of augmented by Lucinity? So where have they gotten Lucinity and Luci to write a kind of template rationale or template disposition, but then they've gone in and edited it to the specifics of the alert, really making it clear where it's both human and machine working together is really important.
I was also just going to give a really basic answer to this as well, which maybe I don't mean to like kind of dumb down the tool, but I think one of the key things that we found with our cohort of analysts, and I'm sure it's probably the same for lots of you in this room, mainly like early 20s, first job out of university, and the main feedback we get is actually the same as your recent award, cool. like this is a cool product. I like using this as an analyst. And I know we're laughing about that, but I think for that cohort of users that are using it day in, day out, that is such an important, powerful thing. And to have the analysts in Billy's team really engaged, really motivated, really passionate about using it and kind of finding that passion for fighting financial crime. Obviously, there's some amazing technology and innovation within there, but I think the fact that it's cool goes a long, long way.
So absolutely cool. What is cool right now, right, is generative AI. So everyone's talking about it. We won, in essence, a badge for it, which is really great. What do you think is the effect this is going to have in general on the fin crime industry, and what are the biggest opportunities that we can harness with this kind of technology?
I think the biggest overall opportunity is it will be a massive step forward in using humans and using people for what they're meant to be used for. So there's a whole bunch of administrative work that we saw in some of the stats on the slides where the humans, the analysts, aren't spending their time in the right areas. How can we empower them and do a lot of that stuff in the background and return it to them in a really concise, easy to engage with format so that they can take that in and factor it into the other things that they're doing as part of their EDD and as part of their review, and then use that to inform their human level of judgment. Because at the end of the day, a lot of this ultimately boils down to, are we writing a SAR? Are we not? Do we think this is suspicious? Is it not? What's my gut feel about what I'm observing? And having something that basically does a lot of the more mundane stuff for you, but then also gives back some great insights at the same time is a really powerful combination.
I also think the combination of like utilizing that AI to kind of bring together all the different data strands and various sources, I think that's the kind of piece that humans were like inherently quite bad at, unless you're kind of like Rain Man and you can like spot trends and patterns across multiple different sources. Generally, we're not very good at it. I think GK mentioned that spreadsheet of data. Like again, like most of us are kind of like we're filtering a few sales, we're putting a few pivots on. We're not really utilizing the data till its full potential. And again, having an AI prompt or a tool which is telling you this entity or this actor on the system, if you look at their activity in this way, has actually sent, a rounded amount across 7 transactions. I think that's kind of a data analysis which you're just not going to get as an analyst, but putting that to the forefront and saying, we think this could be an indicator of suspicious activity. I think that's where you kind of get the real like huge gains within the kind of financial crime fighting space, that you can really leverage that technology to kind of say to an analyst, like, here's the dodgy stuff, like this is where you need to focus on. And then obviously like using the modules to then kind of write that up and to say to law enforcement, kind of, like done and dusted, like here's some bad money, like there you go. I think being able to do that and it taking, half an hour as opposed to like a whole day in several different teams, I think that's the real power.
Yeah, that sounds really, really, really good, I'd say. But I think what we've all learned over the last couple of decades is that new technology always comes with its challenges, right? If we could implement everything very quickly and very easily, then I think the world would be in a much more advanced place. What would you say are the hurdles and the challenges that you encounter when you talk about generative AI, how it fits in your security framework, and kind of what advice would you give to the people in our lovely audience tonight on how to tackle all that?
Yeah, there's the inevitable security question. I think in the absence of any real broader legislation or regulation around really understanding generative AI, for me, and when we've kind of explained it to our analysts, we're kind of thinking about just sensible use policies for the use case that you have and the problems you're trying to solve. So one very tangible step we've taken, because we're not fully using Luci in our case management system just yet, but we, within Visa, have a Visa-approved instance of ChatGPT, and it's basically saying to them, this could be a really useful tool to you to help understand what a special purpose vehicle is or some complex financial structures. Basically, have a play with this, because in future, this is the direction of travel that we're going in. And I think what's been really interesting about the key challenge that I would see is, like Will said, like it's a really cool tool for the analysts, but it's something that a lot of them have never seen before. So one of the things that's been challenging but really great to work with Lucinity on is actually the process of building out our new UX and UI in their case manager and how Luci is going to fit into that. That has been a very, very collaborative approach. So we spent some time over in Iceland earlier this year, but Lucinity actually came over and spent some time on the ground with our analysts in Cardiff, like watching what they do, the disparate systems they have to look across, and really thinking about how can we take them from those multiple disparate systems to something that's very unified and very powerful, how do you take them on that learning journey and help them understand like what's at their fingertips? So that's a key challenge I would see, is like helping the analysts understand how to use it in the right way. And then from a security perspective, we're recently-ish within Visa. It's probably towards the top end of the spectrum as to how much effort it is to go through those kind of processes. But again, it probably comes back to really clearly explaining the data that is being used by this tool and where that data does or does not go. So again, really helpfully from Lucinity, able to say it does not go anywhere outside of an OpenAI environment within its own Microsoft Azure cluster. It doesn't get shared with anyone else, isn't used for training anything else. Being able to really clearly articulate that for the very interested security people is probably what they want to hear.
Talking, of course, a lot about the users and the analysts themselves, right? What generative AI does, in essence, is automate a lot of the tedious tasks, helping us summarize, making us more efficient. How do you see the role of the analyst and of the fin crime prevention operations evolve alongside that?
Do you want to do first? Yeah, I'll take this one. I think like Billy touched on it earlier, but I think it's moving them into that real like specialist area, right? It's where they should be using their expertise to kind of decision a case. And I think we saw some of the stats when GK was taking us through, but I think like we see it, and we've got, because we're lucky enough to have a reasonably uniform tech stack, but we still see like, okay, there's an entity I haven't seen before, like let's open up Chrome, let's Google this, and then, oh, like let's download the list of transactions from Tableau, and oh, like Tableau's not working. And I think all of that, as I said, just like builds out time and just like takes kind of like man hours out the day. Whereas actually what we're saying is and I'm sure like the same as lots of you in the room, like we like really invest in our analysts, we put them through training, we put them through kind of like learning pathways, which, to be honest with you, is a waste of time if actually 90% of their job is Googling and like downloading spreadsheets. So I think like how I see it working is like we are all investing in these people, we're training them, we're putting them on a pathway of anti-financial crime. Let's make sure that what they're doing is anti-financial crime and not Googling and downloading spreadsheets, because they might have done another job if that's what they knew they were going to do. But I think that's how I see it evolving, and that's how I see that the more and more like kind of data analysis and like deep work we can kind of put in front of them before they get a case, they can actually think about, is what's in front of me actually suspicious? How do I want to look at it? How do I want to understand how this is happening? And then I think what you actually get is, and I think a lot of us will probably put the teams that use a tool maybe in kind of the first line or a compliance ops team, but what you're actually building there is almost like a kind of like a specialist like investigations team that just happen to sit there and utilize the data as it comes out. And I think that's where you'll get some like really, really powerful work coming off the back of it.
I have nothing to add.
Brilliant. Then I really want to thank you two for joining us tonight on this panel. Thank you for our lovely audience tonight. And as GK said, please come talk to us, give us your ideas about what Luci should be able to do next, and have an enjoyable evening with us.